To control life is to suffocate it. Imagine holding a handful of water. You grasp tightly because you do not want it to spill. You squeeze ever so firmly because you fear that it may run away. And yet, the tighter the grip, the faster it escapes through your fingers. That is how most of us attempt to live. We hold, we grasp, we insist, and in the process of trying to secure life, we accidentally choke it. We were taught that life must be managed, sculpted, and forced into shape. We grow up believing that happiness is something we construct, like a structure made brick by brick, rather than something that unfolds on its own. But life was never asking us to master it. Life was only asking us to participate in its rhythm. You have seen the leaf floating down the stream. It never argues with the current. It never negotiates the bends of the river. It simply rides, and in riding, it arrives. We envy that leaf because it seems so free. What we forget is that freedom is not earned by effort. Freedom is the absence of grasping. We spend much of life trying to design certainty. You wake up and craft plans. You attempt to understand exactly how someone should love you, exactly how your career should proceed, how you should age, what tomorrow should look like. You arrange every piece of existence into some protected sequence. And then, when it inevitably refuses to obey, you feel betrayed. But life never promised obedience. Life promised movement. Life promised change. Life promised endings. You see, your difficulty is not that life is uncontrollable. The difficulty is that you believe control is necessary. You live as though you must protect yourself from uncertainty. You think that without firm grip, everything will fall apart. Yet consider the flower. It grows precisely because no one is pulling at its petals. Consider your breath. It works because you do not direct it. All that flourishes does so because it is allowed to be. Control is based on fear. You attempt to control because you distrust the nature of existence. But what is it exactly that you fear? You fear loss. You fear rejection. You fear being misunderstood. You fear that if you do not interfere, life will collapse rather than blossom. But life does not collapse. Life collapses only when you become rigid with it. Look at relationships. The moment you try to cage love, it begins to suffocate. You want the other person to behave exactly as you imagined. You want their affection to be stable, predictable, unchanging. You want them to reflect back to you your worth. Yet when love becomes possession, it no longer breathes. Love thrives when it is given permission to move. You cannot preserve it like a frozen flower. It must wilt and bloom again. It must transform. You must allow it to reshape your expectations. To control life is to attempt to live in delay. You say, I will relax when everything is arranged. I will be content when all uncertainty disappears. I will love when love becomes safe. But safety is only found after surrender. Waiting for certainty is like waiting for the river to stop flowing, so that you may float comfortably. The moment the river stops flowing, is the moment it ceases to be alive. Consider time. We attempt to possess tomorrow. We attempt to control the unfolding of events. But tomorrow never arrives as you imagine. The past has already dissolved. The present moment is the only reality, and yet we barely inhabit it. We are always leaning forward or pulling back. We want life to behave according to rehearsed scripts, rather than discovering its improvisation. To control life is to reject its intelligence. You forget that existence has been here long before your desire appeared. Life knows how to continue. It knows how to correct itself. It knows how to break what must break and mend what must mend. Even the ache you resist is often the doorway. Even the moment that disappoints you is often the turning point. But when you intervene compulsively, you close every doorway before you ever walk through it. Imagine a bird learning to fly. At first, it stumbles, uncertain, uncoordinated, seemingly unsafe. Yet only in allowing the wing to collapse momentarily does the wing learn its shape. Real mastery emerges from dancing with uncertainty, rather than constructing scaffolding around it. When you let the wing wobble, flight eventually becomes effortless. We live as though life must be corrected. We say, if only things were slightly different, then I could live. But living does not occur when conditions have aligned. Living occurs when you stop insisting on alignment. Life is not a sculpture, it is music. Music becomes unbearable when you pause it at every note. Music becomes alive because each tone dissolves to birth the next. You are not here to hold the note. You are here to hear it. And that is why control suffocates life. Control is an attempt to arrest motion. It is an attempt to freeze time. It is an attempt to stop life from being life. But nothing can freeze and still remain alive. When you let go, your life begins breathing again. Let us imagine that your life is a bird perched on your palm. The more still your palm, the more confidently the bird remains. It stands lightly, elegantly. But if your fingers tense and tighten, if you try to enclose it, the bird flees, not because it dislikes you, not because you are unworthy of it, but because confinement is incompatible with flight. Life is that bird. It comes close when not demanded. It stays when not coerced. It flourishes where freedom exists. Yet most of us clench. We clench emotionally, intellectually, spiritually. We attempt to seize life rather than meet it. And when life flies away, we interpret its departure as abandonment rather than liberation. There is another paradox. The more you let life go, the more fully it returns. The more lightly you touch it, the more deeply it enters you. When you stop insisting that existence must follow your script, you discover improvisation. The difficulty is not that life changes. The difficulty is that we resist changing with it. We try to keep identities intact. We chase the feeling that once defined us. We cling to the version of ourselves we once admired. But identity is not a stone. Identity is a wave. It rises, breaks, and merges again. And here is something extraordinary. Nothing that dissolves truly disappears. Everything that leaves returns as something else. Loss is rarely loss. It is transmutation. It is the seed cracking so the tree can exist. But when you attempt to preserve the seed, you prevent the tree from emerging. People often say that letting go feels like dying. That is because ego survives through possession. But life does not ask you to die. Life asks you to stop pretending that grasping is living. Once you stop clinging, you discover that what was dying all along was illusion. Think of breath again. You inhale, it expands you, it fills your chest. But if you refuse to exhale, you suffocate. Life is inhalation and exhalation, gaining and releasing, arriving and vanishing. To cling is to hold the breath. To trust is to let it move. So what does it mean to live without suffocating life? It means you stop negotiating with reality. You stop believing that life must justify itself to your preferences. You allow discomfort to be instructive instead of inconvenient. You permit endings without demanding explanation. You listen more than you rearrange. When you give up the posture of control, you rediscover that life was never chaotic. It only appeared chaotic through resistance. Much of what you called misfortune was simply transition. Much of what you labelled failure was redirection. Much of what you treated as abandonment was release. Consider relationships again. Two people can love, but love cannot exist unless oxygen remains between them. If love becomes obligation, it calcifies. If affection becomes currency, it poisons. If presence becomes possession, it collapses. Love is not an object passed back and forth. It is space held open. It is breath shared. You must not ask love to become still. You must ask yourself to become soft. Let us also speak of time. The universe did not design you for efficiency. You were not born to meet deadlines of the soul. You were born into unfolding. Every moment ripens at its own pace. Rushing existence is like demanding that sunrise appear early. You can plead, negotiate, command, insist, but the sun rises when it rises. And yet, when it rises, you never stand in judgment. You simply receive. Receive. That is the movement. Not possession, not capture, not control. Receive. The paradox is that reception feels passive, yet it is participation. When you receive life, you do not impose shape, you allow shape. You do not enforce meaning, you uncover it. You do not demand continuity, you surrender to renewal. Life breathes when you allow it, and you breathe when you stop suffocating it. At some point in living, you will come to a moment when everything you held dear changes shape. The doors that once opened will close. The patterns that once comforted will dissolve. The meanings you trusted will shift. And in that moment, the old instinct will appear again. Control. That old reflex that says, tighten your grip. But that is precisely when you must loosen, because the moment life rearranges itself is the moment life is giving you a new doorway. If you clutch the old, you cannot walk into the new. What opens when you let go? You become unguarded. You become quiet. You begin hearing reality rather than projecting onto it. You feel sadness, and it moves through you rather than defining you. You feel uncertainty, and it becomes invitation instead of threat. You feel endings, and they become transformations. Life does not need your supervision. It needs your willingness. Your willingness to be surprised. Your willingness to be undone. Your willingness to be rearranged. There is a gentler form of strength. It does not come from control. It comes from presence. When you are present, life is no longer hostile. The unknown becomes a river rather than a cliff. Time becomes a rhythm rather than a race. Love becomes a meeting rather than a contract. And so we return to the beginning. To control life is to suffocate it. But when you let it breathe, you discover something astonishing. Life was always on your side. It was simply waiting for you to stop constricting it. Existence is not something you dominate. It is something you dance with. And when you dance rather than direct, you become weightless. You discover that the water stays in your hand, not when you squeeze, but when you cup your palm gently. Then everything begins returning to you, not because you demand it, but because you no longer chase it. Life loves an open hand.